Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Hughes, and this is going to be the first video in a series of math tutorial videos where I'm going to take you from entry-level algebra all the way through multivariable calculus. The first thing I want to talk about is probably the first and most important thing that we need to know in order to learn math is how to learn math. We want to realize that math is a skill that has to be practiced over and over and over again until it's mastered. So math is a skill. Alright, it's very much like learning a musical instrument or learning a sport or something like that. It takes practice, and preferably we want to practice every day if we can. So just basically take your assignments for the week and divide by 6 or 7. Take a day off. It won't kill you to take one day off, but we just don't want to run into these one day a week or 2 day a week marathon sessions. It just doesn't do you any good. So you want to try to practice a little bit every day. Second of all, you want to know how you learn. Okay, I'm going to put a link in the information section for a quiz that helps you determine how you learn, whether you're an oral learner, a visual learner, a tactile learner, and all that. And it'll get into that. So look below and determine what your learning style is, and then focus your studying and your homework to that the way you learn. All right. So determine your learning style. Forgive my handwriting. I'm getting used to this graphics tablet, so it'll get better hopefully as time goes by. All right. So number 3, we're going to refer to my paper here. I've got what we call the 10 Commandments of Mathematics. It's kind of humorous, but it's very, very true of all students. I'm going to just go through those one by one and explain what I mean. So number 1, and there's a reason why this is number 1. This is the number 1 mistake people make in math, I think, by far. Is thou shalt read thy problem carefully. If we're working on an equation, we're just solving a linear or quadratic equation, and we'll get into those later. Don't worry if you don't understand what I mean. You want to make sure that you don't just look at your textbook, then try to work the answer, then look at your textbook and focus your attention back and forth between the textbook and your paper. Take the extra time to copy the problem from your textbook onto the paper you're working at. That way you're just focused on one piece of paper, and it works a lot better. Also, you want to make sure that after you copy your problem, that it's the right problem. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a student and they're having problems, and I look at their sheet and they've got half of problem 1 and half of problem 2 smushed together, and then wondering why their answer doesn't match the back of the book. Well, of course it won't match the back of the book unless somehow the back of the you made enough mistakes in the back of the book just coincidentally equals what you have on your paper. But so make sure you copied all the problem down correctly before you start working on it. So number 2, whatsoever thou doest to one side of thy equation, do ye also to the other. So if I know, coming back here, you know that 2 equals 2, right? No duh. This is what they call an identity, and we'll get into that later. But basically the idea is if I know if 2 equals 2, then I know that 2 plus 1 must also equal 2 plus 1, right? No duh. And 2 times 3 must also equal 2 times 3. So make sure that you balance whatever equation. If you do something to this side of this equation, like I added the 1 plus 1, I've got to do it to the other side of the equation. Multiply by 3 here, I got to do it to the other side of the equation. We'll get into more of that when we actually start working on algebra. All right. So number 3 is, oops, mouse is a little too fast. Thou must use thy common sense, else thou wilt have flagpoles 9,000 feet high, yea, even fathers younger than sons. We want to make sure that our answer makes sense. If you're looking for the third side of a right triangle and you get a negative 20 feet, that can't be, because there is no such thing as negative 20 feet. Stand up right now and walk 5 feet, negative 5 feet. You can't. You're going to be walking 5 feet. So we want to make sure that our answer makes sense. We also want to make sure that it's in the right units. When we're doing word problems, oftentimes we'll be given something in kilometers and asked, our answer needs to be in kilometers, or we might even do conversions, but we want to make sure that our units are the correct units for the answer that they're asking you for. All right? Number 4, thou shalt ignore the teachings of false prophets to do all thy work in thy head. Don't do anything in your head. Write everything out. All right. There will come a time when some things you can do in your head, and that's only after you've completely mastered those things. Some of us that teach or tutor or the higher level mathematics, we kind of don't listen to this number 4 so much. Because it does get kind of tired, and mathematicians tend to kind of get lazy. But when you're learning this stuff, make sure you write everything down, and this will lead into the one further down, because if you don't write everything down on your test, your teacher's going to think that you might have cheated, or you're just guessing at an answer, and you'll lose all credit. Whereas if you've written all your work down, she'll give you as much partial credit as possible. Alright, so number 5, when thou knowest not, thou shalt look it up, and if thy search still eludes thee, thou shalt ask thy all-knowing teacher. We want to try and try and try to the best of our knowledge to figure it out on our own. Okay, if we absolutely get stuck, then we're going to look in our textbook. Whoops, back out here. Sorry about that. Microsoft Word. Then we look in our textbook to maybe try to work an example solution that looks like it. Or we'll look up maybe the properties that we might have forgotten or something like that. This also extends to watching YouTube videos like this one here, for example, or the rest of the series. Or other sources like Cramster, or some of these websites that give you step-by-step solutions written out. If all else fails, you can't figure it out on your own, you can't figure out what your resources are telling you, then you want to ask your teacher. You got to think your teacher's got 30 to 40 students, and if every single one of them came up to her for help, she wouldn't be able to help each one that much. So try, like I said, try to work it out on your own, use your resources, and then if you get stuck, ask your teacher or enlist the services of a tutor. So number 6, thou shalt master each step before putting thy heavy foot down on the next. Math builds on itself. Alright, what you're going to be learning in these videos is a basic knowledge of algebra. That knowledge is required if you're going to study trigonometry, and both of those things are required if you're going to study calculus, and all 3 of those are going to be required if you study something higher. So if you don't really understand one of these steps, you're not going to understand the following step, and you're certainly not going to understand 2 steps later. Alright, so back to our sheet. Where is it at? There. Come on, work with me here. There it is. Alright. Number 3, thy correct answer does not prove, number 7 rather, thy correct answer does not prove that thou hast worked thy problem correctly. This argument convinceth none, least of all thy teacher. This is what I was meaning for number, I think it was 2, that it leads into this, is you want to write everything out. Show your work. Try to get as much partial credit as you can. If you don't show your work, it's either right or wrong. If you show your work, then your teacher will give you some leniency. If one little tiny mistake caused everything else to be wrong, but everything else was right by the laws of mathematics, then you're only going to lose points for that one little mistake. Alright, number 8, thou shalt first see that thou hast copied thy problem correctly before bearing false witness that the answer book lieth. This basically means that if you don't get the same answer in the back of the book, don't just give up and go on to the next one and think that the book's wrong. Rework the problem. If you get the same answer twice and 3 times and 4 times and 5 times, then maybe the answer book's wrong. But there always is also the possibility that you're doing the same wrong thing 4 or 5 times, or how many times you do it. So we want to make sure that we check to make sure that we check that we're doing everything correctly before we just automatically move on to the next one and just say, oh, the answer book's wrong. Alright, number 9, thou shalt look back even unto thy youth and remember thy arithmetic. Oftentimes when we get higher in math, we forget all the stuff we learn, the very basics. We don't want to fall into this, so we don't want to use calculators unless we have absolutely no other way of determining what's the correct answer without using a calculator. So if you've got basic arithmetic, basic whole numbers, you want to do it by paper. We don't want to put it in the calculator. We don't want to have to rely on the calculator to tell us what 3 times 4 is equal to. Okay. Now, finally, thou shalt learn, read, write, speak, and listen correctly in the language of mathematics, and verily A's and B's shall follow thee even unto graduation. This basically means is that along the way, you're going to learn a bunch of notation. You're going to learn a bunch of terminology. You're going to learn some concepts. You want to learn all those as you go. You want to really memorize what these concepts are, what the notation means, what the words are, and so on. So, all right. Well, thank you very, very much for listening. This was my first video, and if y'all have any critiques, please let me know. If you like it, let me know that too. But thank you for listening.